brothers and sisters. Welcome to Talking Black. Yo, my brothers, get ready to man, put the pipe down, brother. Get ready to get your VCRs together because we got brother Al-Hajj Muhammad on tonight, brother that you're familiar with. And we got the Pope of Harlem, Father Lucas. Yeah. So that's why I'm telling you, put down the crack pipe and the roaches, and let's get ready to get some knowledge. Let's have my brother. We're going to introduce our guests. Yes. I just want to tell you, man, I went to a meeting. I really wasn't invited to the meeting, but this Negro called me up. Hey, well, it wasn't a Negro. This is a brother called me and said the Negroes is having a meeting down, executive board meeting, the NAACP. Seemed like they're still looking for a gun.
And Austin?
Yeah, the pigs said they found a gun, but somehow, they said that this 40 caliber had a silence on it, and wondered how they heard the gunshots, and the ballistics aren't matching. This is what the head of the NAACP said.
The bullets are not matching the gun that they claim.
I don't even know what the Negro was talking about, but he's saying that there's another gun out here in the community after these pigs assassinated our brother, executed him, and I think they got the wrong gun. I don't know. The brother was kind of unclear, but he said he wanted somebody to turn the gun over so he could take it to
Now, Walt, you got a little bit clearer now. You got to tell our viewers the person that you're talking about is the president of the Ossining branch of the NAACP, right? Yeah, that's and what he's saying is that he's coming into our community and is telling our people, look for that gun that they cannot find now, that claimed the young man had, but they cannot find it, and he wants the president of the Ossining branch to go out there and look for the gun and turn that gun in, and so he can use that as evidence against the man they murdered. Is that right? What you're talking about?
That's what they're talking about, man. But he's saying,
can you believe that? Can you believe that? Now, Walter, let me tell you something. I promised that we talked before the show, and I said to you that I tried to calm down my rhetoric a little bit. I didn't want to use certain phrases. For instance, when you say like house, I was using like house nigga, and I don't want to use the word house nigga. You understand? And I'm a little concerned about that. I want to live up to my promise. But you make it difficult for me, Walter. Well, you had that house nigga, the president of the Ossining branch of the NAACP is out there working for the police, working for the police, in order to try to make it easy for the racist cops for what he did. When you use the word, not murder.
It was execution.
It was an execution, and you have all people out there looking and working with the police. Well, that's what you have in Ossining, people in Ossining, and that's what we've been saying from our show. These house Negroes that you have claiming that they're leading you down the drain, brother. There's nothing they can offer you or offer anybody other than a white racist power structure.
That's it.
Oh my God, I'm fit to be tied for the rest of the show.
Now we're gonna get into the show. We'd like to welcome Father Lucas, the Pope of Harlem, to our show. To what I'm talking black, Brother Hajj. I mean, your brothers and sisters know him, and I've seen him on it before. And basically, he got some fan mail that we read a couple of months ago.
By a clan?
Yeah, from one of them old white devil racists.
Well, I want to welcome Father.
Thank you very much,
Father Lucas. I have been always an admirer of you and types of things that you're doing in New York. In fact, I maybe talked earlier that the first time I ever saw you, and I heard that you were going to be there, I made sure to be there because the person that we were there was a memorial for Kirkpatrick.
Oh yeah.
He was a member of Deacons for Defense.
That's right.
And he was a hell of a fighter. And I know that's when I went there, and you were there, and memorializing him, and I heard a lot of speakers, etc. So I'm glad to have you. And I think that people up here have to know who this Catholic priest is. He's a Catholic priest here. And he is not the type of priest that you see sitting here in the pulpits in some of these black churches here in Rockland County. Understand? He is a minister. And if he told me wherever he wanted me to go, I would go. But I'll be damned if these ministers can lead me anywhere, not the ones I'm talking about out here. So welcome, Father Lucas. I'm telling you, it's a great privilege to have you on this show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Father Lucas, in your book, Black Priest, White Church, I mean, you gave us an introduction to yourself, and you talked about your encounter with Malcolm. But again, like a lot of young people, a lot of people would want to know what would lead an African American into the Catholic Church, and how do you rationalize this whole Jesus thing as we see in the black church? I mean, we go to some black churches to see that he's white, and even when we go in the Catholic Church, I mean, everything is white.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can give us a little background.
Well, first of all, as a Catholic priest, I've believe in the serious teaching, which very few people get. Like talking about democracy in this country, which never had, the talk is there, but the walk is different. If but 5% of those who claim they are Catholics had any understanding of the teaching, much less follow it, we'd have one of the great revolutions that the country has ever. But most of them is pure, unadulterated BS.
Right.
You see that they think that being Catholic is a question of going into a building and making some noise, especially the now colored Catholics make a lot of noise, and that's it. Once you finish the show and you got sufficiently fleeced, then you go back to being totally irrelevant to yourself and to the rest of the black community. Actually, Catholicism is supposed to be a total way of life based on the message and the example of Jesus. And when I talk about Jesus, since you did mention it, I'm not talking about some blonde-haired, blue-eyed, pasty-face looking broken wrist individual that they hang up in some of these churches. That's BS. That if you take the scriptures and the history seriously, there's only one thing Jesus could have been, was a strong African brother. A strong African brother who came to bring about revolution, which frightens a lot of people to death. But by revolution, you mean a total change in a political, economic, and social structure by which a few have it all, the masses have nothing, and then you create a class of stooges in between to do the dirty work for the upper class. If you were to look at this country, 1% of the population controls 40% of the wealth. 10% of the people in this country earns more money than 90%. And so what you do, the wealthy puts clowns in office, like what you have in Washington, not only the Congress, but Bill No Spine Clinton, you know, who, it shows you the caliber of the country. Everybody running around talking about how many ugly bimbos he's screwing. Meantime, when his pants is up, is when he has killed us with the Nat and the Gat treaties, so-called welfare reform, which is another part of slavery, trying to recolonize the African countries all over again with this so-called African growth and opportunity, which he took the Three Stooges, Charlie Rangel, Verda Jordan, who I thought his responsibility as a top lawyer in Washington was to get bimbos for the president and defend him against them, and then Jesse the Pimp Jackson to go over there to recolonize Africa. And, you know, so these are the kinds of things that we have to be very careful about. These folks talk a game about democracy. I hear talk about empowerment zone in New York City. And the only thing it's doing is empowering the big white companies to come in and take all the money out of Harlem and restore nothing. So when I talk about being a Catholic priest, I think it's important to realize I wasn't born a priest and dropped down from the heavens. I was born a black man in a Harlem community, not by accident. You know, some of these Negroes who tell you I'm a lawyer, I'm a golfer who happens to be a Negro, and some of them don't even know who the hell they are except I'm a golfer, and this kind of a thing. I was a black man before I was ordained. And that's what's first. And then it's a black man who's serving as a priest and trying to do it honestly and realistically in terms of confronting whatever is degrading, whatever is exploitative of human beings. And since those who have been designated in that category have been people of color like myself, African people who at least 400 years ago, that's all we are, until some 300 years later, we were everything else under God's good earth but African people. We define ourselves now in terms of where the exploited, the racists stopped the boat. So now, instead of being African people, we're North Americans, we're from the South, we're from the North, we're West Indians, we're Barbadians, we're Trinidadians, we're Jamaicans, we're Guyanese, we're every damn thing under God's good earth except African people. So that, contrary, we have a slogan in the December 12th movement, to die a tribe and rise a nation. What the exploiter has done is to take a nation and kill a nation and create tribes and have those tribes fighting among each other. And as we continue to fight among each other, some talk about West Indian this, some talking about other things, this and that, the oppressor is laughing all the way to the bank. So I have no trouble claiming to be a Catholic priest, because that doesn't mean as far as I'm concerned, 95% of the folks who claim to be Catholics don't even know what it means, much less wish to practice it. I mean, you take an example, and I better shut up. But as an example,
go on, brother.
You take an example. You got two.
Are you ready to go home? Or what
you got two clowns now in New York. The poor excuse for a mayor and the poor excuse for a governor. Both of them claiming to be Catholics. All right. Now I could remember when Phony Cuomo, who also claimed to be a Catholic, who was able to build 23 prisons up in the counties upstate so that ignorant white folks would get a job warehousing black folks in jail, that when he said, for example, that he personally is against abortion, but he doesn't want to impose his view on anybody else. Well, we know that was BS, because whatever decision he took would be imposing that view on the folks who took the opposite.
You're right.
The bishops jumped down his throat, see? Apparently now, Catholic teaching condemns the death penalty also.
Right.
According to the Bible, the death penalty is idolatry. Human beings, man taking upon himself the right that belongs to God alone. Now you have a Catholic mayor, at least allegedly. You have a Catholic governor, the two biggest proponents of the death penalty in the state. And I don't see the Catholic bishops jumping down their throats at all. Much less the Catholic population who follows this poor leadership. So I got to conclude that when they talk about pro-life, they mean don't do anything to me while I'm still in the womb. But when I come out and you make sure that I am who I am, then anything goes. If you look at New York City, for example, a large majority of the police are Catholics, at least claim to be. Brutality since this clown has come to office has reached a new height, just like it did under the original Hitler. Corporate crime has gone through the roof, just like it did under the original Hitler, because they were there to serve big business. I've yet to hear in Catholic churches anybody talk about police brutality, call those who claim to be members of your congregation to task for what they're doing. And of course we know that the police simply function to protect the property and the interests of the upper class.
Right.
And so these are the kinds of things you have to.
Well, Father, I know I didn't see you, but I think you've been sneaking around here and listening to some of these programs, because that's exactly how we're dealing with the issues. I support you 100%, and everything that you said here in terms of the role of our enemies out there in the community, people like Giuliani and other members of the power structure, and even with this, with Clinton, what they're attempting to do, even with a Clinton, is to get us to feel sorry for him, and me too. Why I keep on picking on this man for what? Yeah. My God! But you spelled it out. Yeah. In terms of what has Clinton done for us as black people?
Helped to enslave us.
That's right, right.
And too many black folks. I voted for the bum simply because I thought nobody could be worse than Bush.
Yeah.
And during the campaign, if you remember, he promised that he would change Bush's policy towards Cuba. He sure did. He extended it.
That's right.
But unfortunately, the difference between him and Bush is that while he's going to be probably head to hell before Bush, is because he knows better, but he has no spine. You see, he's weak.
You're talking about Clinton.
You're going to talk about Clinton, and I'm not talking about his penchant for bimbos. That that's been his MO. But of course, if you look back in history, you'd be hard pressed to find, except those who are on the funny side of the street, you'd be hard pressed to find too many presidents that were not damn liars, homemongers, and
womanizers.
Yes,
all of that.
All of that. And to run around talking about this man should be, quote, impeached for perjury. Which dude who is stepping out on his wife is going to come clean and say, yeah, I'm screwing around?
Right.
So you expect him to lie there. I'm not justifying this.
Yeah.
But if you're going to worry about those lies, what about the lies in regard to Iraq? Where in order to keep Iraqi oil off the market so that the price goes down, that lie resulted in 250,000 innocent civilians killed in the Persian Gulf, and now over 500,000 children, because of this immoral, illegal blockade of Iraq, are dying. And you lie to the people, but these kinds of lies, this shows you how debaucherous this country is. They're not arguing about the lies that were told to us including Uncle Tom Colin Powell, and to justify the invasion of Panama, to justify the invasion of Grenada, to justify Vietnam, to justify Desert Storm. Those are the lies that he should be hung for.
That's right.
Not the fact that he's screwing around with some bimbos and now you say, well, the man lied. Damn, the man's been a damn liar. What do you expect? That's one of the primary requirements for president, that you have to be a damn liar.
Of course.
Yeah. You see, another thing when you talk about Clinton, I tell you, it's not left my mind. Every time they mention his name, or I think of his name, Clinton, the thing that brings I recall is that here a retarded young black in Arkansas, retarded.
He came back from his class reunion
That's right.
to sign the death penalty
That's right.
for somebody who do. And you know, you bring that up. Look at what happened. Ferguson, as crazy as a bedbug, right? He shoot up some white folks on the Long Island Railroad. The man should be hospitalized. See.
Right.
But again, those two good Catholics took the leadership role, then a couple of crackers from Washington, D.C. He's got to be punished as a criminal. Oh, justice, he's now in jail for life. Meantime, several weeks ago, a rich Jewish lawyer in Yonkers, he slices up his girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Leave her dead on the kitchen floor.
Right.
What do you hear? The man is mental. He probably is not even capable of going to trial. He didn't even know she was dead.
Or an ex-police officer in Tarrytown. Is it
Exactly.
Tarrytown?
So
and
what's going to
kills his wife.
Yeah.
And kills his daughter. And the first thing you look at the white newspapers, and what they talk. Oh,
he
he's
went
under
off.
tremendous stress.
Yeah, he went off.
That police work is tremendous.
Exactly.
And
Stressful.
You're right. When he went out, when he comes back, he just forgot to leave the police mentality outside the door. They brought it back home.
And you know what's going to happen?
Excuses.
And you know what's going to happen? This lawyer, like that policeman, will be sent to a rich people mental institution for about 18 months. And you know, rich white folks recover tremendously quick.
Yeah.
They could get over any kind of thing quick as long as they're rich. So they'll be back out on the street. Meantime, they're gloating about Ferguson got life in prison without.
And if they want to finish on this question about this about the people should know this, because I think that because I've heard even some right-wing and racist on the talk show will have felt this similar to when it came to this young man in Arkansas. Understand? When this young man, when they were taking him out to the execution chambers, where they're going to put him to death. And he had not yet finished his meal. There was some jello or something that was there. And the prison guard says, look, you didn't finish it. Don't worry about it. I'll be back. I'll finish it when I come back. He didn't even know when a man like Clinton can put him to death.
Yes, exactly.
It says something about his mentality. I'm telling you, I will never forget that.
And then look about
the rotten son of a bitch.
Look about these white murderers in school. Notice most of these killings in schools are by white folks. We haven't integrated enough yet. And they are planned. See, when black folks kill, 9 out of 10 times it's the heat of an argument on the spur of the moment. Black folks are not calculated, planned killers, except those that they're trained and they call them in the military to serve their country. You see, to serve white supremacy. And they still refer to them as youth, as students, as kids.
Yeah.
Look at what they did to the Central Park case in New York. Yeah. There's not one jot of physical evidence to tie these folks even to the beating. As far as DNA, their semen wasn't on this gal. This gal said it was relationship she had 3 days before. And one wonders what kind of a woman, what kind of hygiene she practiced if she still has it 3 days, or maybe it's like Monica Lewinsky's dress. But, you know, nothing, and they still were called animals, they were beasts, they were everything else, went to jail for nothing to convict them but the media and white racism, and they're in jail. Meantime, these folks who calculatedly planned, executed some folks in school, they are still youth and they are still children. Look, when was the last time you heard anybody get sentenced for murder to 2 or 2.5 years? You remember this nice, rich Jewish girl and a boyfriend who killed the newborn?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah. That's right. That's in New Jersey. That was in Jersey.
That was in New Jersey,
That's right. That's right.
That's
recent.
Yeah. I mean, a sentence of 2.5. I mean, we have folks going to jail, and I'm sure New York City is no different.
Up here too.
For longer than that, for a beer can open in the street.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.
It's incredible, and we take it seriously. Every time a parolee does something, if it's a black parolee and the victims are white, you can rest assured that Adolf Hitler from City Hall and Benito Mussolini from Albany are going to jump out there saying, we got to do away with parole.
Yeah.
What happened in the last month when your wonderful governor paroled 4 drug dealers, and gave them a welfare ticket back to Israel and to the Dominican Republic, and then we found out that several of them had contributed over $200,000 to his campaign. And we didn't hear anything said by the great anti-parole Giuliani and Pataki about that. Now, if I had done that, I'd be in jail.
Right.
You know? Talk about
See,
a conflict.
the white people, Walter, I don't know, cut in there, Walter.
No,
I want the viewer to think we holding you down. Like, you
know,
jump in there now.
Well, on my last show, the brothers saw me in the street and they said, all I did was go on.
Yeah,
What I want to do is introduce, the second half of our guest is Brother Al-Hajj Muhammad, who we've had on before. And, Father Lucas mentioned December 12th, and I know I've been going to December 12th.
Is that Viola Plummer? Is that she part of that?
Yeah,
yes, she is.
She was right here then.
Political prisoners and prisoners of war. So I know Brother Brother Al-Hajj Muhammad had been talking to me about some of the political prisoners he's been working with, and I asked him to come up so he can update us on some of the things that he talked about last time. So. And then I got to get back to Father Lucas and ask him something about his book that impressed me, and so some of the viewers could hear too. Okay, brother.
Yes, sir. Bismillah, Rahman Rahim, the name of Allah, the Compassionate and Merciful. Recently, I received some information pertaining to Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz, who we know is a political prisoner, a freedom fighter, a political activist. This is a brother who was framed with the shooting of a corrupt drug-dealing cop named Timothy Galvin on February 5th, 1997. This cop broke into an apartment in the Bronx, 1771 Grand Concourse, with some other corrupt Caucasian cops. Burglarized the apartment, got high on crack cocaine. This was Timothy Galvin, a lieutenant in the police force, so-called police force in New York City, 46 Crack House. And what happened was that as he was running out the door, trying to escape with some money that they found that belonged to Abdul Kabir Ahmed, he was shot 3 times in the leg, in the back, and on the side of his cheek. This criminal was running out of the house, high off crack cocaine. And what they did was that they said, well, we have to find somebody in the community to blame for this shooting. So of course they found a freedom fighter, a brother who closed down crack houses, who has been fighting police brutality cases almost all of his life in the Bronx, in Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn. Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz. He was framed with this shooting of criminal cop Galvin. So what happened, by the grace of Allah, by us being in the street, cable shows such as this show and other shows on TV, radio shows, we exposed crack dealing Galvin to be a criminal, and they're not going forward in this case. So what they did was that they framed Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz with a mystery murder of a crack dealer named Edwin Mendez in the Bronx. This individual died in 1992. This alleged shooting occurred in 1991 in October. And of course, as we know how criminal cops are, the photo array which they showed this their witness who is incarcerated. This individual is incarcerated. All the witnesses that we found out are incarcerated as of right now. So what they did was that they fabricated a witness from the Dominican Republic. Probably he had a case with these criminal cops, and he pointed out Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz's picture. Of course, he would pick it out because his picture was posted all over TV, CNN, and all the TV programs all throughout the country. And this individual, which from my investigation has a case with the criminal cops in New York City, and prevent him from being incarcerated by the criminal cops. He did what they said and pointed to Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz. So we have here from a motion that was sent to a judge named Alvarado, states that there's no physical evidence linking Mr. Abdulaziz to the murder. No ballistics evidence, no fingerprint analysis, no DNA analysis, no serology evidence, and no audio or video evidence ties Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz to this fake frame-up mystery murder of Edwin Mendez. So on September 28th, 1998, we will be back if these cowards don't dismiss this fake case against our freedom fighter at the Bronx Supreme Court, Part 55 at 2 p.m. Attorney Ronald Kuby, he's the attorney at war, which I'm presently working with as a legal assistant and private investigator. And we intend to have the community out in support as we continue to be filling the courtroom for our brother for over 17 months. And his family is staying strong, we're staying strong, and inshallah, we'll fight to free our political prisoner, Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz.
Isn't it something similar to Abdul Haq? I mean, he was part of December 12th. A brother was closing down crack houses, did some time, some, stupid thing that they said he did, and he got, out of jail. And all of a sudden, they put a murder rap on him that took place in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, this is the same thing that happened that night. In February, we had a rally for Amir Tawfiq Abdulaziz, and Abdul Haq was there. Some attorneys were there, and we spoke, and we looked in the crowd. And of course, when we have our political rallies in the streets, in the Bronx, wherever, we memorize faces, and we seen faces that were unfamiliar with the activists who come out regularly. So we believe that this rally was infiltrated with spies and informants, agent provocateurs. And the next day, when Abdul Haq, a former political prisoner, went down to visit his parole officer, he was arrested, for a mystery murder that happened over 15 years ago in Cleveland. Allah bless him. He won the trial, and he's out, and he's still doing activist work in our community.
If I look, how you see this? Because I know on December 12th, here you got like brothers and sisters riding up on the thruway. All of a sudden they get stopped. Guns are found in the cars.
Yeah.
I know Robert did, 2 years? Abdul, maybe more than 2 years.
Well, actually, the time they spent in jail for that was a time waiting for trial.
Damn.
When the trial came, they kicked butt. And of course, I don't have to tell you who was the persecutor, that great crime-fighting U.S. attorney, Adolf Hitler Giuliani.
Right.
And what he did was to abuse the RICO law, which really should not have been applied. But in fact, his first application of the RICO law was against, at that time they were called the New York 8+. And it's interesting that brother Al-Hajj mentioned, because both of these brothers I know very well. Both of these brothers, Tawfiq is a really young brother, but a brother who has his head together, a brother who is, in the real sense of the word, a freedom fighter. And in my knowing him in the streets, and what he and people like he and Abdul Haq about, those are the kind of brothers we need out. We don't need those kind of brothers incarcerated.
Yeah, how come we can't, I mean, I remember having a brother on the show, man, that they had brought from Vietnam. They're supposed to kill a state trooper in Inkster. I'm trying to remember his name, but we got brothers like this out here, man. We can't get no kind of play. Like the news just shuts down when we try to,
Oh yeah, well look who runs the news.
Yeah.
I mean, such stalwarts like Murdoch, to Times, which is just the most sophisticated post. What's the name? Zuckerman for the Daily News, all of whom contribute heavily to the campaigns of Hitler and Mussolini, Giuliani and Pataki, and I wouldn't be surprised, probably Gingrich too. So what we have to remember, that while we talk about the media is nothing more than another of the arms of big business. It is big business itself. And if you look at how more and more are being concentrated in fewer and fewer hands, well, what do you expect?
In your book, you gave an encounter with Malcolm X, and I always thought that was something that stuck out of my mind. Maybe you could just tell the audience a little bit about it.
Well, this was centuries ago. I think I was in first year college or something. Or no, it must have been because I was in black. So it was about the third year. The way they did it at that time is, if you're studying for the priesthood, you did 4 years high school and 2 years of college in one place, and then 2 years of college and 4 years beyond college in another place. Well, when we were in Dunwoody, that was where we did the last 2 years of college, and our uniform was a black suit, white shirt, and black tie. And I could remember coming down, it wasn't called Malcolm X at that time, Lenox Avenue, and I was all dialed up, you know, and in those days, you know, a black in a white Catholic seminary, was somebody that you bow down to and adored. So I'm coming along, and I have a briefcase, and Malcolm, who will talk, as you know, spoke to anybody. And Malcolm asked me what was I doing. I said, well, I am a student, I'm studying. He says, yeah, I could see that. I said, what do you study? And I'm saying, I'm studying to be a Roman Catholic priest. Well, I thought Malcolm was going to shake my hand and say, right. Malcolm looked at me and said, you must be out of your goddamn mind. Well, from that time on, you know, who's this cat talking to me like this? You know? But it was one of the better days in my life, because it was between my mother, a Jamaican who also was a Gaviite, and Malcolm, that really put me on the right course. I mean, and then from there, you remember the old Missouri bookstore? We used to go to that bookstore. I call that the University of Harlem. And where
we mean the bookstore that was on Lenox Avenue?
That's right.
I used to attend that. I used to go there all the time.
And where I was introduced
to
Michelle.
That's right.
And where I was introduced to books that I couldn't even find in these white universities and colleges. And naturally, if they had known at that time that I was going to study with Malcolm, I would have been ordained. I would have been kicked out. You see. And then these other folks, remember Dr. Ben used to be John Henry Clark, the late John Henry of happy memory. I mean, these were Elambert Brath. These were the kind of folks, you know, who really gave you a perspective. I remember one of my buddies was George Clemens, who is rather controversial himself, when he spoke at my 25th ordination to the priesthood. He in the course of his sermon, he said, well, there's two things I know about Larry Lucas. First, he's going to die, and secondly, he'll never become a bishop. Not in the Catholic Church. And he was absolutely right, because by that time it was rather clear I wasn't going to take that route.
Yeah, right.
You know, totally irrelevant to your community, kissing white ass, and then they decorate you for being Colin Powell in the church, you know, and so...
you see, you know, back to you,
Al-Hajj.
You know, and what you gave the report about the particular young man that you were fighting for and hoping to bring him back into the community again, to continue doing the things that he had been doing and you consider to be very positive, etc. Now, we have a lot of young people like that throughout this country, even here. But what we do have is the power structure, the white racist power structure. They see these young people as a threat to society. The fact that they are out there and they're independent-minded, they have not listened to the garbage that they've been taught in school, what they hear on the television sets about this so-called democracy that we live in, and they're now challenging this system of ours, and they become target. But let me say also that there are other blacks out there, house Negroes, understand, who work along with the power structure for the purpose of attempting to unite with the power structure against that element in our community, and they too take the position. These are troublemakers, and you know, we understand, Massa, why you are feeling this way, why you think it. We don't like them either. And I'm saying this, Father Lucas, because that's what they said about us as well.
Of course.
Walter, they were set down behind closed doors, and they would map out the strategy. how to deal with Bill Scott or Walter Brooks. And these are house Negroes, and they're still here, and they're still playing a role.
And they're going to be, in fact, that you mentioned that, one of the things that Malcolm, that I'll never forget, Malcolm describing the house as opposed to the field, Negro.
Yes, right.
And I thought that was so masterfully done. But that's what it's supposed to be. And I think you give them too much credit. The crack of power structure doesn't really look upon these folks as a threat to society. It's a threat to our economic interest. The white power structure don't more give a damn about society than it gives a damn about a cockroach. And that's including poor white folks.
Yeah.
Except they were able to brainwash them with the issue of racism. Why do you think poor white slobs got out there and voted for Giuliani? I mean, he's almost as dangerous to their well-being as he is to our well-being.
Or Mussolini too.
Yeah, but exactly. But you throw in the question of race, and that's solid. If you look at where most of his votes came from, where did they come from? They came from us who stayed home.
That's right. That's how we.
That's really
right.
What did it.
That was our contribution. Setting on our hands.
And I think a certain fat preacher helped that along. No names right now, though. Created a scenario that caused black folks to become disgusted and stay home. But there were only about 38% of the eligible voters who voted. And when this clown got 54%, of course the white media said it was a landslide. How are you going to call a landslide 54% of 38%? Most of the votes came from the Hasidic, particularly Orthodox Jewish community, and white Catholics.
Yeah.
And then the vast majority from black folks who stayed home. See, how else you explain this clown? I mean, this wonderful mayor capturing Brooklyn and Manhattan, except for black folks stayed home.
And you know, I just used another word, by the way, which they're going to really charge us with now that we're anti-Italian. Why do you have to say to connect Mussolini and Italy? You know, in terms of this person's philosophy or his political views that are quite negative towards us as blacks, etc. Well, look, let me tell you something, viewers. You know, you can't keep shaking me with those arguments. You know, Jews are saying if you say something about the Jews, then you're anti-Semitic. If you say something about this, you're anti. And now all of a sudden you say something about that damn fascist Giuliani. Now you're anti-Italian because he happens to be Italian. Yeah. I don't give a damn what ethnic group he was, sitting there acting and behaving that same way. He would be still looked upon as I see it, an enemy of the people, a fascist. Yeah. If you give him the rope, he would put it around our necks as quick as we gave it to him. That's how much he thinks about us.
You see, they have to understand that when you use such terms as Hitler and Mussolini in regard to them, you're using them as a type, a mentality, and a behavior. See, and what I tell folks, before you argue about my calling him Adolf, if you haven't done it, read The Rise and Falls of the Third Reich. And if you have done it, go back and read it. Even some of the terminology is the same. Privatization, you know, fighting crime, popularity. Hitler's popularity was tremendous.
Mussolini
until it became Mussolini.
And what he said, the trains ran on time.
Yeah, the trains were going to run on time. You see, meantime, by the time the folks woke up, the next were already in the news. They had no right. Folks who are willing, and after every tragedy, you know, there's Bill Clinton on the guise of, quote, fighting terrorists, and you wouldn't think that this country is the biggest terrorist nation in the world today, and he's the leader of these terrorists. But be that as it may, that you take away more and more of the civil rights of folk under the guise of fighting crime. And that's exactly was the scenario that Hitler used and Mussolini used. Oh yeah, all you got to do is to tell the fools you're fighting crime. And before they know it, they have no civil rights, much less human rights, because they were afraid to make the distinction between the two anyway. You see, if we began exercising the rights that we got as human beings from the Creator, we could turn this country upside down overnight.
Yeah, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, but there was a time that I heard you many times speaking in Harlem on a God-given right to self-defense, and there was a time that I think Koch at the time had accused you of being an anti-Semite. I think you were talking about the school. The
situation. School, exactly.
And then all of a sudden he said that you were armed with 2 9mm or something like that. I mean, was.
Well, wait a minute. That was Crutch.
Was that two different?
Right. All Crutch knew, I mean, at that time, was I was one of the relatively handful of black folks in this city licensed to carry a weapon. What I carried or did not carry, Crutch hadn't a clue about, because I wasn't part of one of those that Crutch may have been undressing. But be that as it may, when I came back and said, "Have you counted how many rabbis have license to carry guns?" Crutch had, actually, black folks who are licensed, apart from those who are in the so-called law enforcement, who are licensed, are so few you could count them almost on one hand.
Yeah.
When you look at the rabbis and the Jews who are carrying guns licensed in the city, that's where it is.
Well,
and that list is public information. Of course, there's no public information under Giuliani, because if you don't, I won't let you in my press room. Notice my press room, everything is not his. But yeah, Koch did that. And I said to Koch, that's where the name Pistol Packing Priest came. And I said to Koch, if I were able to ride around in a big city limousine with 3 pigs in the car and another car behind with 4 pigs, I wouldn't have to defend myself or be in a position to defend myself. I pointed out, after all, in Luke 22, you remember when Jesus asked his disciples when he was going on a rather dangerous trip, how many swords you have? Today you'd say, how many knives you have, see?
Right.
And they said 2. And he said, that's enough. And then he gave them an advice. He said, those of you who have 2 coats, go sell one of your coats and buy yourself a piece. See? And he wasn't robbing banks or doing anything.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, what is that? Can you identify that piece of scripture?
Yeah.
Luke what?
Chapter 20.
Wait a minute. But get your pencils ready out there now.
Yeah.
Get your pencils out ready. What's that? Luke?
Chapter 22, verses 22 to 36.
Yeah.
You'll find it, and I didn't just make it up.
Okay. All right.
You know, because we all have a God-given right to self-defense. Thank God Adam Abdul Hakim, formerly Larry Davis, had that 45 which these pigs gave him to protect their drug sale, because when they came to assassinate him after he found Allah and was ready to change his life, could you imagine if he had gotten on the phone and called for President Kennedy or for the Congress to tell these pigs to leave me alone, he'd still be pushing up Daisy.
Yeah.
But with one hand raised to Allah and the other hand accurately in death, he sent those cowardly pigs running down the stairs.
That's right.
They dropped their guns and came back the next day to pick up their shotguns.
Scared them to death.
Sisters scared them to death.
Yeah.
You know what?
Well, I have a, I carry a gun, Father.
You don't have to admit anything to anybody.
No. I got a license.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't.
But I don't mind letting but I want my viewers to know, because we get lots of threats here concerning what we talk about. But they're not thinking that for somehow or another, if they think somehow or another they can come here and to blow me away without some kind of response from me. All I ask a good God to just give me give me one shot at him, so that
I just use a different philosophy. I say what you don't know won't hurt you until you make it necessary to be hurt.
That's right. Well, so they all know it. You know, we showed a pistol on our show. We showed it on our show. We answered, and that scared everybody. The sheriff called me in. The district attorney called me in. The judge called me in. Do you think that you're setting a bad? I'm not setting a bad.
I'm bad example.
No, I'm setting a message.
Pigs are walking in our neighborhood swaggering with 9 millimeters to blow us away, and you're setting. And my thing is, I primarily first have a God-given right to have whatever I need to defend myself against an unjust attack.
That's right. That's how I feel.
And the sooner folks begin thinking, all of these folks who run into church and make a whole lot of noise, hallelujah, amen, and bullshit, and haven't got a clue about what's in the scriptures, they better start dealing with themselves as human beings and understand the rights they have as human beings. I hear some church folks, when Koch did that, jumped out there and called, you carry, and you're a priest? Well, first of all, you don't know what I carry. But thank God that if I do, yeah.
Right. But by the way, those people don't know it now, though. I do know this for a fact, that we got some, we call it Amy Zion ministers who carry guns. And not only do they carry guns, Father, they go to the pulpit and they're preaching from the pulpit with the gun on them, with the gun at their side. They see no problem. So maybe that group might understand what you're talking about.
What good will it do you if you're preaching from the pulpit and somebody come in to do you in and your gun is upstairs in your drawer?
Well, we had an experience like that, and the brother here was with me. I went to a local church here, by the way, to sit down and talk to some group of ministers. And so I felt that, out of respect for the church, I took the gun, took my gun, and I put it underneath my seat, car. And I walked into the church, thinking that this is a church of Jesus Christ. He preached love, nonviolence. I had nothing to fear by going into that body, because, that's the nature of the church. When I got, what happened, Rafana? We had a big argument there, and stuff got so heat, the minister jumped up and tried to grab me, and the other minister had to grab him and throw him against the wall, etc. Now, I said on the show, and I said that, let me tell you, don't ever do that again, because I made a mistake. I should have brought that gun with me into that church, just in order to defend myself from those house Negroes who thought that they could do harm to those guys.
But you mentioned two things which I think is important. Don't let anybody tell you that love means that you let somebody exploit you, oppress you, and beat the hell out of you, and you stand with your hand in
turn the other cheek.
Turn the other cheek didn't have a damn thing to do with that foolishness. It had to do with the African gesture of excommunication, when Jesus is saying to those who claim to be his followers, you can't have one leg in my camp and one in the enemy's camp.
Oh my God.
And when they throw you out of the synagogues and they think and give you that African gesture, turn the other cheek to let them know that you understand you don't belong to them. I've heard crackers and colored folks tell black folks BS about turning the other cheek, and I'm almost 40 years a Roman Catholic priest and have yet to hear either a white priest or a colored priest talk to a white congregation telling them crap about turning the other cheek.
Yeah, you see
so
that?
We have
Tell
to
us
get
that one more time, brother. Where did the symbol, turn of the cheek
It's a symbol of excommunication, of ostracism. We don't want you with us. Okay? And so that business about nonviolence, when Jesus made some whips and whipped their ass down the temple step, was that violence or nonviolent? You see, here again, we let them run the game. The only time the cracker talk about nonviolence is to black folks when facing white folks.
Yes.
When did you hear them talk about nonviolence when we're doing each other in?
Right.
When did you hear them talking about nonviolence when they take the cream of our crop sometime, take them to camps to train killers out of them, and give them medals for destroying people in Vietnam and the Persian Gulf and Panama?
That's acceptable.
Yeah, that's acceptable. So don't hand me no crap about nonviolence. Because that's the wool over my eye. Yeah. I'll be nonviolent towards you if you're nonviolent towards me. Right. You make an attempt to be violent towards me, I'm going to get your ass before you get me.
That's right. That's right. That's good thinking there, Brooke Father. You're going to be here another 50 years.
And that's Christianity.
Yeah, I know.
And that's Christianity.
That's Christianity.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Don't tell me about nonviolence when you telling folks to drop napalm, when you telling folks to bomb the hell out of Iraq, when you building an arsenal of nuclear and biological and chemical weapons that no other country in the world can match.
Right.
And then you're going to talk to me about nonviolence? You must think I'm a damn fool.
Well, let me tell you something, you house Negroes here in Rockland County and Westchester County. You hear what this priest just said, don't you? I suggest that you call some kind of a gathering and have him go up to preach to you. Some kind of a class, so that he can tell you what this Bible's all about, etc. They need you up here to explain that, Reverend.
Most of them deal with the Bible first as if it's one book, when it's a collection of books.
That's right.
And secondly,
right.
as if they were written in English in the 20th century by Western Europeans and white Americans.
That's right.
And have no clue that God spoke to us through ancient African people who use their own language, their own culture to describe. And simply because you have an English translation, good, bad, or indifferent, doesn't give you have a clue as to what it really means.
That's right.
And so that's why all of this distortion.
The King James Version, you know what I mean? That was really
named after King James.
That's right,
because he paid the money, and then what they did, distorted it in order to justify his diabolical, immoral way of life.
That's right, that's right. Oh my God, we're really getting into here. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, brother, I just wanted to say, because Father Lucas spoke about Adam Abdul Hakim, and maybe you can just give us we had heard that he had been hurt, he couldn't walk, and he got all this time in jail, brother. We don't even know when he's coming out. Well, maybe give an update on the brother's situation.
Presently, right now, Adam Abdul Hakim's case is in a federal court in Lower Manhattan. He's been down there for about 2 years. His case has been, pushed to the back, of course. Because he's a political prisoner. And with our brother in the struggle, revolutionary priest, Pope of Harlem, Pope Lucas, has said that self-defense, you know, is our given right that Allah has given us, the Creator, and we as African men and African women must stand up for ourselves and fight. Adam Abdul Hakim is presently at Windy Correctional Center, not correctional center, upstate New York, concentration camp. He doesn't have a wheelchair. He was paralyzed in 1988 by a gang of coward prison guards, you know, who jumped him when he was on a crutch, when his leg was injured from another attack, cowardly attack by some coward prison guards. And he was hit in the back after fighting them with a pipe. And he's been paralyzed since 1988. I worked on the case with attorney William Kunstler and Lynn Stewart, Chokwe Lumumba, and attorney Michael Warren on those cases, and Allah blesses to win many of those cases. And he was framed with a murder of a drug dealer that we believe the cops killed, and by a Zionist judge named Barrett in the Bronx court, who composed jurors from Westchester County, which is illegal, and they found him guilty. But he's in an honor block right now without a wheelchair in Windy Correctional Center. So right now, you know, we respect what he did, because the Pope was a character witness for him. The Pope, myself, his mother, and I think Viola Plummer, and some other people came to court that day, and we had a full house. And we told who were the enemies, you know, in our community. They're the cops, criminal cops, coward Klan cops who come from this area, Spring Valley, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, who work with coward, fascist, Nazi, lowlife named Adolf Hitler Julianus, who we have no respect for. He's not my mayor. He's the mayor of the Nazis. He's the mayor of the Klan and skinheads. You understand? We have no respect for him, and we don't believe nothing you have to say, Adolf Hitler.
You know what, Al-Hajj, you see, when you use the word Julianus.
Yes, Julianus.
Right, yeah. Well, the people might not know what you're trying to say.
Julianus?
I know anus now is asshole.
Julianus.
Is that what you're saying?
Adolf Hitler Julianus. That's what he is. Now we know what when we defecate.
Am I right what I'm saying? But
yes, that's what he is.
All right.
That's what he is.
Okay,
it's Latin for the lower.
That's
right.
Part of your
enemy to our people, and being here, and Hitler can think that he can sway us from coming out and to support our youth in the Million Youth March. He's out of his mind, because first of all, if any African who has any consciousness wants to attack someone, let's attack Hitler, you know, because he supports killer cops. He supports every corrupt thing that occurs in New York City. He's anti-African. He's pro-Klan, pro-Nazi, pro-fascist. So if all these Negroes who have come out recently to attack the leaders and the organizers of the Million Youth March, they're out of their mind. We support it because personally, I'm not working for any Caucasian, any Klan, any Nazi. I can say what I want to say. You can't fire me. I work for myself by the grace of Allah. And I will be there, if Allah wills, on September 5th and support the youth, the elders, grandmothers, grandfathers, whoever comes out there, African, Latino, people of color. And if there's some good Caucasians that come out also. So we support you.
Yeah, Father, I want to just ask you a question about the Men Youth March, how you feel about it. But I want to ask you, what does the hierarchy of the church think about you? You know, the cardinal, they ever call you in, or the bishop, you know?
I really never give that a thought. My primary is, what does the Lord think about me? And if the Lord says I'm all right, that's what counts. So if they got a problem, then come with it and let us discuss the problem. So I never. I
mean, I'm sure that the hierarchy in the government has gone to the people in the church and said, "Can you do something with this?"
Oh yeah, well, Koch used to go to his friend Cardinal O'Connor. I remember when he got out on television and said Cardinal O'Connor ought to fire me. And I thought it was a good idea, but I told Cardinal O'Connor, why don't you give him permission to do it and tell him to do it? And, But yeah, I remember when Filthy Phil Caruso was president of the Police Brutality Association. I mean, the Police Benevolent Association. I mean, he used to go to the bishop all the time, and you know, I didn't give a damn because if what I say was not true, well, then challenge me on the truth.
You know,
but if you don't like it and it's true, then that's your problem.
You know, your father know that we have a police here, a lieutenant in the police force here in the Spring Valley who's suing one of our programs, the Black Perspective, and myself for speaking out on some of those issues that we just talked about.
Yeah, right.
And felt that you know, I defamed him and things of this nature. You know, the objective here is to try to silence us, to quiet us down, and keep us from talking, and all sorts of things, etc. So the fact is that we do know that the PBA, and you call them the police
Brutality
Association, had crooked lawyers, by the way, who they were found charged with racketeering. They were convicted and ready to go to prison. And these are the people.
Yeah, the president of the Transit Police, the ex-president of Transit Police, before the hostile takeover, euphemistically called a merger, is ready for sentencing for crooked.
So I just want the people to know that what we're talking about. Now, when I saw the picture the other night, that day, where they had this police had beaten up this young man, his face, his eye was coming out of his face. That face, my God, it looked like it went through a butcher shop somewhere. That way it was looking. And that the head of the PBA came out and says, we think that policeman who did this now was a good policeman.
Of course.
And we support him. And we're going to do everything we can to defend him, etc. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And the public was able to see that for themselves.
Well, look at the same situation you have in the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. Who was pushing it? The FOP. They call it the Fraternal Order of Police. We call it the Fascist Order of Pigs.
Yeah.
You take your choice and like that. They're absolutely terrible.
Yeah, we got 1 minute. I just want to get you.
I'd like to leave a phone number for the
we'll go off talking.
Yes, the supporters who want to come out and support Mir Tawfiq Abdulaziz, freedom fighter, political prisoner. Call area code 212-281-8985. 212-281-8985, and come out, because you could be next. Free all political prisoners and prisoners of war.
Now we want to make sure to mention about the Million Man
I wanted to ask
Youth
Father Lucas. No, he had some impressions and some things that he felt.
Well, yeah, I had some problems with how nobody in the Harlem community, leadership, grassroots leadership, was consulted and this kind of thing. I didn't see any stated political, economic, or social agenda on a large scale that would follow from it. So that I wasn't that enthusiastic, but as long as you're bringing out my kids, you know, and my folks, and then to have Adolf get in the picture, to say where you could or where you can't go, and then we'll give you a permit for Van Cortlandt Park. Who the hell? He didn't give the Hasidim a permit for Van Cortlandt Park. Otherwise, Randall's Island. But I think Randall's Island he used, but what he really meant was Rikers Island. You know, there's no way. Now I got to be there. You know, I got to support it. And above all, whoever is organizing this must be in a position to protect these youngsters against any onslaught of the Gestapo. And protect them by any means necessary.
I think this is a lot of discussion on that point alone that I've been hearing on TV and also on the radio stations now. I believe that they would looking into this, and I have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are going to work in that direction. Yeah. And so we take at this time, you know, I'm suggesting to all black youth and every youth that watch this show from all of Rockland County, Westchester, Northern New Jersey, up in Port Orange County, and this show is out there. I'm suggesting that all of you youth attend that march on September the 5th in New York City in Harlem, and show the racist mayor and racist cops and all those out there who are against it, only because of the fact they're frightened of us. That's why they're opposed to it. Not that we don't have the right to be there. We have a right to be there. Right. That's our constitutional right to be there.